Hello, Patriots. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. If you've been following me, you've heard me say and or read me say millions of times that at a time of crisis like this, every anti-capitalist, every anti-Westerner, every anti-American will morph into some flavor, some type of humanist or humanitarian. And that's where they go to hide and run out the clock. That's where they go to try to survive, to not fight another day, but continue to subvert another day. Here's an example of it.
House Democrat calling for Biden to freeze Iran's $6 billion has history of backing Gaza aid. Representative Colin Allred is among the latest entrants in a...
As these words are being spoken, and this video is being recorded, as far as I know, there's only been a leak to social media that the funds have been frozen again. As far as I know, there has been no official declaration from Washington. Only a leak, which itself throws a lot of questions in the air. Just wanted to say that. It might have changed, but as far as I know, it has been a leak so far.
Growing list of House members calling on President Joe Biden to refreeze the $6 billion in Iranian assets he unfroze.
Keep in mind, throughout this entire ordeal, Washington always stated that those $6 billion could only be used in humanitarian efforts, while simultaneously, and during 100% of the time, it has been stated and repeated by Tehran that it will use the funds to its own discretions. Just wanted to make that point.
Before Hamas terrorists murdered more than 1,200 Israeli men, women and children in an October 2nd massacre. As we continue to stand with Israel and mourn those lost in this unjustified and horrific terrorist attack, the United States must explore all options available to us to hold Hamas and their Iranian backers accountable, Mr. Allred said in a statement made public on October 11th. While Hamas deserves the lion's share of the blame, Iran cannot go unpunished for its role. With this in mind,
Iran cannot be punished. Why? Because it's unbelievable amounts of money that is being used as kickbacks back into Washington. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, has far more friends in Washington than he has in Tehran. All he has in Tehran are subjects. 95% of the time. They obey him because they're supposed to obey him, etc. His friends, though, they're all in the West because they're bought and paid for, which is one of the reasons it took forever to to get the US to react in regards to the $6 billion. Because you can't get the kickbacks that you're supposed to get if you freeze the funds that you're supposed to get the kickbacks from.
I am calling on the administration to immediately freeze the $6 billion in Iranian assets, the Texas Democrat declared. Mr. Allred's announcement likely would have gained little notice but for two factors.
Also, keep in mind, the funds are in Qatar, physically. So are the Hamas leadership. That's where they're sitting in expensive hotel rooms or safe compounds. And while, as they watch their, quote, fighters, which Arabs that have been subjugated and brainwashed into becoming terrorists and militants, die as they make their millions. Yasser Arafat was the head of PLO, which is PLA now, It's the same thing as a terrorist organization. Mahmoud Abbas, after Yasser Arafat's death, took it over. Mahmoud Abbas is a multi-billionaire now. All money from terrorism. But the social media and the TV screens and the newspapers world over is always full of the children that are walking in mud and in refugee camps and don't have a bite to eat. Remember, flesh peddling has never known race, nationality, creed. Nope. It's an act as old as the sands of time itself.
First, he announced on May 3rd on X that he is seeking the Democratic Party's nomination to challenge Senator Ted Cruz as the latter seeks his third term as the Lone Star State's junior senator. The Dallas Democrat got a strong boost shortly thereafter when it was reported that he raised $6.2 million, compared to $4.4 million for the incumbent. Allred is the heavy favorite for the nomination, as so far only two little-known Democrats are opposing him. The Cruz/Allred battle is sure to be among the most watched elections in 2024, as the Republican incumbent barely survived a strong 2018 challenge from Democrat Beto O'Rourke by only 3 points. The Progressive Turnout Project's Alex Morgan told Time magazine in May that he sees Mr. Cruz as the most vulnerable GOP Senate incumbent. But the second reason Mr. Allred's $6 billion freeze announcement raised eyebrows is his uncomfortable history of backing U.S. aid to the Gaza Strip and the West Bank in 2021 that a State Department counterterrorism financing expert said could benefit Hamas. The terror group has had total control of the area since Israel's withdrawal in 2006 and other Muslim terrorist operations. Since then, Hamas has launched thousands of guided and unguided rockets into Israel, killing many, as well as training and sending terrorists on suicide attacks in public.
If you're hungry, hunger takes precedence over hate. That is a rule of nature.
Places. The massive surprise attack from the Gaza Strip on October 2nd killed the most Jews in one day since the Holocaust in Germany before and during World War II. Soon after taking office in 2021, Mr. Biden gave orders to restart the flow of U.S. aid to the Gaza Strip that his predecessor in the Oval Office, Donald Trump, had stopped. With as much as $350 million in renewed assistance at stake, Republicans in Congress and elsewhere immediately raised objections. Among them was Senator Jim Risch, who exercised Senate privilege by placing a hold on $50 million of the authorizing legislation. Mr. Allred was one of 145 House Democrats signing a June 2, 2021, letter to Mr. Risch asking him to end his hold, saying, "We write with a great sense of urgency to respectfully request that you release your hold on tens of millions of dollars in appropriated humanitarian aid that is so desperately needed to meet the needs of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian civilians rebuilding their lives in the wake of the fighting between Hamas and Israel earlier this month." Mr. Risch's concern was that some part of the U.S. aid going to the Palestinian Authority would end up benefiting Hamas by helping finance benefits to the...
It's synonymous. PA, Palestinian Authority, is synonymous with PLO, which is the same thing. All the terrorist organizations, it's the same modus operandi. It's the same bowl that they're all eating out of. The fact that someone can walk around in that capacity within the framework of U.S. government with some sort of distinction between Hamas and Palestinian Authority, latter not being a terrorist organization and the former being a terrorist organization itself, should throw red flags and alarm bells, sirens, and so forth all over the place. Because who the hell put that distinction there in that man's mind. It's insane.
Families of suicide bombers. That concern was shared within the Department of State. In a March 2021 internal memorandum obtained recently by the nonprofit advocacy group Protect the Public's Trust through a Freedom of Information Act request, a State Department counterterrorism official described Hamas as a foreign terrorist organization and specially designated global terrorist. Other terrorist groups are present in the West Bank and Gaza, including Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Palestine Liberation Front, and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine.
These are all Islamo-Marxist groups. Even that terminology makes no sense, because in Marxism, in communism, there is no God. There is no place for divine providence in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that these are Islamo-Marxist groups is a discussion for another video. But keep that in mind.
The Andrew Weinshank, the then director of the Office of Threat Finance Countermeasures in the State Department, could not be reached by the Epoch Times for comment. The memo was first reported by the Washington Free Beacon. Mr. Cruz was quick to respond to Mr. Allred's call for freezing the $6 billion. In a post on X the following day, Mr. Cruz said, "What about the millions you urged Biden to send to Gaza?" Even though the admin concluded that there was a high risk that dollars would be used by Hamas for terrorism. Should that be halted too? Mr. Allred's difficulties regarding Israel and Islamic terrorism aren't limited to the present controversy over his position on freezing the $6 billion for Iran. The National Republican Congressional Committee criticized the Texas Democrat in 2019 for praising Omar Suleiman, a Texas-based imam who has compared Israel to the Ku Klux Klan and accused the Jewish state of genocide. Mr. Allred's spokesman did not respond to the Epoch Times request for comment.
Nothing surprising here, folks. Nothing surprising. For God and country,